Hello and welcome. We are here with GammaRailgun and M1 Abrams playing on Pillars, another game of the tournament. 6,000 points aside. Everyone should be fairly familiar with Pillars at the moment. Point in the middle and then 2 points on either side for a total of 5 points. So both Gamma and M1 have been around for a while. They are fairly experienced players. So it's going to be really interesting to see what are they bringing, what are they doing. And with the changes to the 450mm in the last patch, how does that affect their playstyle and their fleet composition? So here we can see that Gamma is going for point D, a fairly standard capture, and potentially even a small corvette to rush in capture point A. Alright, so Gamma is on Team Blue, Abrams is on Team 2. So if we have a look here, initial formations, Blue's deployed, or Gamma's deployed around point D. There is a destroyer down towards the bottom with corvettes up the top. So let's have a look at the fleet. Looks like a Torp destroyer. Someone pointed out the other day that the black line on a roll-off is a torpedo with a pinard on the front. We've got 2 corvettes, so this is a missile corvette with one blanket jammers, some point defense, some chaff and ripostes, and then VLS 16s and a carbon copy here. So they look like they're going to be hunting any of the enemy's smaller ships or even their spotters. JDee up the top looks like it's going to be used to identify anything, as well as with the pinard, and then come in with torpedoes to finish it. We've got down the bottom a carbon copy of that top pinard destroyer. It feels weird to say, so that way they have a bit of triangulation between the top and the bottom, noting that there is a massive amount of terrain down the bottom, which is hard to get that pinard lines through. And then the bulk of the force for Gamma is a light cruiser with guns and a supporting E-War, 2 blanket jammers and a bullseye corvette, and then another gun light cruiser with an interruption jammer on both. So 2 carbon copies there. There was another corvette, same deal with pinard on the front there. So 3 bits and on this one, so carbon copies of each other. Now Blue's moving into point D, but we've seen Orange has already started to capture 2 points down on point point E and point B. Very small little corvettes here with a Mark 61, point defense in terms of the defenders and some chaff. So very small capture ships, really good to have. Jump in, get out. Then we also have another ship here with a pinard. This likely has a spyglass on it as well. By fitting a spyglass and adaptive power, and you can then fit a pinard on it. Up the top we have another spyglass pinard corvette, and here it is called spyglass, so that's very handy. Or it is deception on his part towards his opponent. And then the bulk of Abrams' force, he's got light cruisers down here, 250 guns on the front with a bullseye. Bullseyes are flat, and some missiles. He then has a heavy cruiser with 450mm guns, a bullseye on the front, which is a standard configuration, and then defenders and flak on the sides, flak underneath. And does he have a VLS and some missiles? VLS 16s for offensive missiles. The last, which is supported with an E-War frigate, interruption jammer, and 3 bullseye jammers. Alright, with all the ships underway, let's see where we're at. Between the 2 fleets, we have 2 capture points, 2 for Orange, 2 for Blue. Orange getting those early captures with the corvettes, so taking a 20-point lead. We've got the corvettes from Gamma moving around the side. They've likely going to spot the Orange. However, the Jack Sparrow has been moving into point A to capture, which is one of the hardest points. Oops, sorry. Jack Sparrow is not actually capturing. It looks like it's retreating for cover underneath the terrain piece as the light cruisers and their escort is putting 250mm HE fire down into the ship, getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hits on top. So that's going to start to damage both the drive as well as the power. It's actually the stiff arm in the center that has almost fully captured the middle point, going for a 3-2 victory lead in terms of control points. Remembering point A is the hardest and the most open to capture. So even though these Thunderheads are firing in and may actually get this, ripostes firing in counter launch, that'll be enough to destroy that stiff arm. And then with the Thunderheads coming down below, they've actually been fired at the Jack Sparrow, but they have missed, impacting directly on top of the rocks instead of hitting on the softer corvette below. So point A captured, however the stiff arm has gone down as a result, which is a little bit unfortunate. However, it has captured that point, and now now Abrams just needs to hold off with orange and maintain that capture point. So these aren't torpedoes, actually. They aren't torpedoes. These are roll-off MLS 2s. So firing 4 of the missile types, so you can load Thunderheads, Hurricanes, Squalls, or Gales into them. They work really well with the Thunderheads as well as the Hurricanes, but usually seen with Thunderheads. We've got the lifeboats ejecting from the stiff arm as the missiles trail on past. We may actually see them waypoint around one of these asteroids and try to hit one of the ships from Abrams. There we go, starting to turn. But not enough. A lot of them impacting harmlessly. That's it, unfortunately. But a counter missile fire from the Steampunk. Remembering that had the 2 VLS 16s on either side. With Abrams retreating, we've got the fast corvettes, which have the offensive capabilities, being moved into point B, capturing that. If we jump in and have a look at these Thunderheads, the Thunderheads should be countered by the light cruisers. However, it doesn't look like they are responding. No, couple 2 hits on the RSCV. It doesn't look like the chaff is deploying in time. 1 missing, but 2 hitting, and the second missile missing up the top. Another small Thunderhead salvo coming out of the shock, out of Steampunk, whilst we've got another Thunderhead launch being released from the light corvettes up on point B. Top-down attack on the light cruiser. Aurora's firing, chaff trying to deflect. Couple strikes, however, most missing. Responding with Hurricanes and Thunderheads, so jamming isn't going to be able to achieve or deter the Thunderheads like they are with the Hurricane. The Hurricanes won't be deterred by the chaff like the Thunderheads. The question is, will they be able to get around the terrain, which they don't seem to be. The line of sight between the launch ship and the target ship interrupted by that terrain piece. However, both the corvettes getting away, capturing point B 3-2. A fair trade, I would say, causing orange to expend missiles, however, resulting in a blue's point capture. If we have a look, the spyglass up the top, just providing that oversight and that overwatch so that they can find exactly where the enemy ships are. Should start to be able to see we're going to have a crack at that name, the Tamari. He's named it all his ships after Naruto by the looks of it. HE now being launched from the light cruisers and the Hurricanes off towards the Tamari at the front. Some Hurricane point defense in the back, so should be able to cause a bit of issues there, and they do. Hurricanes going wide around, so this will have a 4K range around that ship, deterring the Hurricanes. And that's for both the light cruisers, so that's going to double the amplification between both of the interruption jammers, putting out more and more jamming for communications. Now we've got some 250mm fire between both the ships. Looks like we've got looks like Gamma is staying nice and tight whilst launching his 250mm HE, looking to looking to focus down just one of Abrams' ships as opposed to spreading out. Good play, and it looks like both players are doing that as the 250mm fire from both ships is being traded across the Gulf of space. We've got the support frigate there probably jamming each other at the moment. No one targeting the light cruiser or the frigate as the support ships. They're going for the main body of ships, and it looks like we've got some thunderheads being diverted by the chaff at the last moment. Really good play there by Gamma. We've also got the 450mm cannons providing that support. So with the 250s on 250s, that's one thing. However, with the 450s also impacting, getting some shots on the engines, on the power supply, it does change a little bit of the tide in terms of Abrams' favor. However, it doesn't discount either player at the moment, as we see the 450s go wide from the the 450s go wide from the steampunk. Missile launches continuing for both teams, diverting with chaff, and we start to see a transfer of capture points here. So we've got some of the orange ships down. Capturing point B back from the orange team, or for the orange team, as a missile salvo from the light corvettes unloads with hurricanes and some thunderheads. It doesn't look like the chaff obviously proving too effective, because hurricanes are immobile. Sorry, hurricanes ignore chaff. However, we've got a fuel reactor leak here, so unless the damage control teams can put these out, that ship may explode in the next couple of minutes. Thunderhead still being fired, 250mm HE being fired across each of the varying gulfs of space. More thunderheads coming in from the pinards. Corvettes moving back into capture point B. And point A now taken by Gamma in the center with his light cruisers moving forward. So the balance now moving back towards Gamma, as he not only starts to take out and disables one of the light cruisers, but he captures the middle point and continues up that volley of fire from the light cruisers and from his missiles. Looks like they've taken out the M1A Shock, so a support ship down that was providing a lot of jamming capability into the terms of the interruption jammer, as well as the blanket jammers, life pods coming out, space oil deployed. They're going to want to swap the targets now back to the steampunk or to the light cruiser, which is above, off to the Abaddon, but the Abaddon's also been hit by a fuel reactor leak, and we start to see the shade start to go a little bit purple, and you can see the fuel reactor there on both of these now playing an important part. Damage control needs to race, repair, and get these ships back in the fight and prevent an explosion. With the continued HE, however, still coming in, you see a little ricochet there with the sparks. With all the HE coming in, they could be destroying those damage control teams as they try to put out that damage that this ship is suffering. And it may actually be that Abrams is trying to drive this ship forward and prop the explosion amongst Gamma's ships, as opposed to sitting out the back and exploding. Looks like it's starting to lose engine power. You can see the spluttering of the main engines there. And Gamma wisely moving back, getting out of that explosion range if it does occur, whilst continuing to put fire down on the Abaddon. Steampunk moving in, potentially too close if there is a fuel reactor leak here. Is it patched up? It looks like it is. Now let's have a look at Shade. Shade's taken a bit of damage. You can see a lot of damage to its thrusters. Radar panels out. However, it may still be around, and it is capture point B, so you know that it's working. Well, we have the Symphony of Tears and Red Sky moving around, likely to go capture point E. We also have that underneath here from the RSV Nine-Tailed Fox and the Tamari, which is firing broadside into the Abaddon, keeping up that damage. You really want to take that one out by the looks of it from Gamma, and then he'll focus his attention back onto Steampunk. So in here, he's just going to get that lateral drift. Headings have been set to keep him focusing, but they want to just get in there and take E. We may even see these light corvette. We may even see these corvettes try to come in and take out these remaining ships here. Jack Sparrow underneath looks like it's going to try and capture point D. Would be fairly good if it could. Just drive out, up and under, capture that point from the back. Whilst we have the spyglass that's moved around to capture point C now. So trying to get that 4-1 lead. The Shade sitting there. We've got a Thunderhead launch from the 2 corvettes. Doesn't look like there's much it can do, as it just takes. It seems to be taking strike after strike.
The enemy is securing zone eclipse.
The 2 corvettes, looks like one of them's taken a little bit of damage at the front, probably from a wayward missile or a gun, but other than that, they seem to be fine. The Shade, however, further damage, taking that out. And C now being captured out the back by Orange, as well as point E by the 9-tailed fox. And depending on what the Jack Sparrow is, it looks like it is going to come out and around and then capture point D. So instead of coming up in between the middle of the fight, try to capture one of those points back. It looks like we've missed it, but the precipitation of blades looks like it has taken out. If I was to look up, to taking out the spyglass. So without any active defensive measures in terms of a VLS, it looks like a missile strike has destroyed that ship, returning it to Blue's control. Fairly neck and neck, 404 to 402, 3 in favour of Gamma. However, with Abrams moving to cap point D, we've got the Shade sitting on point B and contesting that. And then we have the Steampunk in the middle, firing its 450mm guns. A lot of front armor here, with lock-ons, should be okay to tank it out with this light cruiser. However, it looks like the Abaddon has sort of taken it. A lot of damage there. It doesn't look like it's reacting or responding, and just taking hits from the Tamari, which is being supported by the 9-tailed fox. Wisely, the Jack Sparrow's been caught out in the open by the Sunhome. Just managed to capture that as it moved out between this piece of terrain and the next piece of terrain, showing the good placement there, preventing the capture of point D, racking up those points as Gamma starts to take the lead. The front is taking a lot of damage. You can see that on this ship we've lost 1, 2, 3 of its main guns, 4 of its main guns, 1 radar panel. So all of its guns are out whilst it's trying to get, as it starts to get its front thrusters and its maneuvering thrusters to get it back out of cover as it tries to get itself into a damage control repair. Well, Symphony of Tears and the Red Sky Morning look like they're coming back to take out the Shade, which is drifting a little bit just on a few thrusters, but again, it's lost the majority of its main offensive complement. And the Tamari now being the source of focus for Steampunk. Steampunk is driving closer, and as it fires its broadside, and broadside on broadside, we're likely to see the Steampunk come out on top on this one. The Tamari was already damaged beforehand. It's lost 2 cannons and the blanket jammer. Interruption still seems to be fine. However, the rest of the ship is taking that damage now. Radar panel on one side destroyed, and 2 and 3. If they could, it'd be good to see Steampunk take out the jammers on the small corvette. You can see that they are angled and causing no doubt causing a little bit of jamming, but if there's a lock on this, the Steampunk probably doesn't care as it starts to rotate around. bringing its front guns to bear, whilst also then positioning itself to counter any other threats. If it has any missiles, now would probably be the time, but thunderheads will get countered by jamming, so potentially best to just leave it. Point B is now being captured by blue. It looks like the shade has moved out of the capture point, so Gamma is going to be able to take that point back, now getting a 30-point lead as he has 4 control points to 1. The shade still destroyed with all of its various weapons, so it looks like it just has the ability to maneuver, but there's no offensive capabilities there. Abaddon looks like it is stuck. All its panels are destroyed. You can see with the you can see there with the lightning that dances around both on the communications and on the radar panels. And you can see from the smoke from the various pieces and fires that this ship also doesn't have much offensive capabilities left. But the steampunk's going to continue to move in closer, and as it does, it's going to reduce its gun spread. So one of the drawbacks of the 450 mils is that the further out it is, the less accurate it is. Now you're actually going to be able to see the fact that as it gets closer and closer and closer, it's not going to miss even with a lock, and we're starting to get some of that over penetration as the components there are absolutely destroyed. You can see with the red power behind the bridge that this ship has no power. So that red light's going to be displayed when a ship has no power at all. So this means all the reactors within have been absolutely taken out. A little bit of information there. And with that, that frees up Steampunk to capture point E, and potentially the 450s will now target this corvette. Being a smaller, faster option, also blocked by the light cruiser. It looks like it may get away as the Steampunk starts to capture point E, but the shade's now moved back into point B and is contesting and capturing that. And it looks like Gamma may actually be just leaving that for shade to take back as they go to capture point A. The Abaddon is in the capture point, but if it has no offensive capability, then the corvettes will take that. And even though it tried to get away, the Nine-Tailed Fox has been taken out by the Steampunk, which, capturing point E, it looks like it's going to move back into the center and leave this here. Remembering to clear fire once you've seen that something is dead is always important, so that you can conserve your ammunition. But that is good and dead. Again, space oil, always a good option. It looks like it's just slowing down, and that's probably why Steampunk is continuing to fire at it, because it believes that it's still moving. And reactors are gone, drives are out, and lifeboats. When you see the lifeboats and you see the space oil, that's when it's done. So 3 points back to M1 Abrams' favour. Gamma still has a lead of about 120 points, having captured D and C, whilst the other 3 points on B and E are captured. If Steampunk doesn't destroy the Tamari, if it moves off the point, it'll capture it back. And then that's what we saw with point B. Here you can see as Steampunk has moved off the point, E starts to be then recaptured. You can see here if we zoom in, as it moves off the point, the Tamari is still alive, still enabling that point to be captured. So the Steampunk is going to have to turn around, as you can see with the history and the direction, and continue to destroy the ship until it does not exist. Now it looks like one of the 250mm have been repaired, and that's power's back out. And the reason why they would have repaired the power and repaired a gun, therefore it had the ability to contest the objective. Now with the Steampunk sliding back into point E, it is returning to M1 Abrams control. A few more rounds and destroy the damage control teams within should put it out of focus. The Sunhome has repaired. You can see that it's come back now, spending some time around the rock just by itself, its supporting corvette, the Morning Song, moved towards the center point to capture point A, with its supporting corvettes that were previously up and around point B. With the Abaddon not actually having any offensive weapons, this is a fairly smart move to do, although it does have one by the looks of it, which allows it to contest this objective. So these corvettes can be potentially shot at. However, the Sunhome looks like with its 3 and its main parts repaired, it's just going to get in there and start to shoot down the Abaddon. So the 2 corvettes now peeling back off, potentially going to go capture point B again. 250 mils here, now shooting at the Abaddon as it tries to navigate away. Likely to see Sunhome moving into point A to try and capture that. But we've now got Steampunk still having to deal with the Tamari over on point E. As you see, once again, as it tries to slip away and out of the capture point, having been forced to return in order to capture that back. One weapon still seems to be active, which is forcing the Steampunk to remain within the zone in order to keep that point under its control every time it seems to leave. The RSV, which is still a functioning ship, is able to capture that point back. So quite frustrating there for M1 Abrams. Still 3 points to Abrams, so as long as he can hold those points, then he should be able to maintain a victory over this map. Coming up on 30 minutes of elapsed time in a couple of moments. Shade here still existing, not doing too much, but being able to sit on this point, not be destroyed by these corvettes. So it's doing absolutely a-okay. And it'll be interesting to know whether or not the Bleeding Solace of Youth and the Precipitation of Blades have any missiles left, or are they saving them for later on? At the moment, they are likely just guarding these rear points. I wonder if they could potentially drift the Bleeding Solace of Youth over more towards point D, so that if anything was to rush it, would it be able to provide a bit of defense? Or is Gamma thinking, hey look, if we keep a bit of standoff distance, if that occurs, then I've got some missiles left from 2 different angles that I can then put effects onto that approaching vessel. So potentially a smarter move, leaving it off in the distance as opposed to rushing and sitting and revealing where you are. Corvettes here just sitting and babysitting the Shade. Whether they have any missiles, they have expanded a fair amount of missiles, so it'll be interesting to know whether or not they are planning to put some missiles into the Shade, or what are they going to do. They are both within the capture point, as you can see. Question is, what do they do next? Abrams coming up to almost leveling with Gamma. The initiative is on Gamma here to perform an action, trying to get one of the control points back and finish the victory condition of 1,000 points. We can see that the Steampunk has taken out the drives from Sunhome. Sunhome still alive, still with functioning weapons. You can see at least... destroyed. So all its weapons are destroyed. Interruption Jammer still seems to be fine. Bullseye Jammer. Looks like the jammer there is Bullseye. Blanket Jammer, sorry. Blanket Jammer destroyed. Damage control likely trying to repair the engines, get that back online moving forward. The Morning Song, no offensive capability, only jammers and a Bullseye lock. Now moving into capture point A. So if we just zoom in, should be able to start capturing point A in a second. Is it in on the point? It looks like it is. But with no offensive capabilities each, it looks like that they may just be at a stalemate. Steampunk now has destroyed the Tamari, so is free to maneuver away from Point E. Point E under their well captured control, and the 450 is now targeting the smaller vessels and continuing to hit the Sunhome. Makes sense if by destroying the Sunhome, it's going to stop any other repair teams by moving in, continuing to put HE, destroying those teams if there are any left. And it looks like a couple of Thunderheads now being launched, potentially to destroy the Corvette. Can jam itself out of the way. Potentially just a small exploratory missile here, just to see what it can get. Turning around, there it goes right towards the Corvette, and that's it. The battle is over. The victory condition going to Abrams by the looks of it, taking out the last piece of offensive ships. Go throw it out. So it looks like that last missile just took out enough of that offensive capability of Gamma, so giving Abrams the victory condition, as Gamma had nothing less to fight with, and therefore they were able to make all the captures from the blue team. With 3 points still at the end, that would have given Abrams eventually the time to capture all the points and meet the 1,000 point victory condition. So if we have a look, we can see that the bleeding source of use expended all its missiles at minute 16, and just before that, the precipitation of blades 15. So they both lost their offensive capability. The Morning Song had no offensive capability around that 30-minute mark when it was destroyed, and that's probably what procced the final amount. The Nine-Tailed Fox destroyed by the heavy cruiser from Abrams around the minute 20, and then it would have been maybe Sunhome. Looks like Sunhome, with its final bit of destruction, then would have ticked over, Morning Song having no offensive capability a couple seconds later. 13,000 damage, pretty good from a light cruiser, well, very good from a light cruiser, and again, you know, the Tamari did just over 8,000, 9,000 almost. And the Symphony of Tears and its counterpart, the Morning Song, doing really, really well. Sorry, not the Morning Song. Where's the other one? Red Morning Sky. With their missiles doing a fair amount of damage each, pressuring those points. Just couldn't get those light cruisers at the end to being the shade. Getting the shade off of that point B, I would have won the game for them, as they would have then prevented the heavy cruiser from being able to limp its way or capture its way back across there, whilst also then being able to secure A and E. So if they could have just taken out one of those light cruisers, either the Sun, either the Shade or the Abaddon, they would have won. Now Shade lost its offensive capability at 12:27, but with Red Morning Sky and Symphony of Tears also having expended their offensive capability, there would have been a standoff. So they needed something to break that with an offensive capability on either team to be able to capture those points. The Abaddon continued to live up until the very end, so sitting in the middle, capturing that point. Its drives were fine. However, and it must have had just one frontal turret that was still good, but looked damaged. Ghost taken out, providing Ghost and Shock providing that support to the heavy cruiser, and the light cruisers destroyed. Fortunately, Jack Sparrow copping it as it tried to get between the different pieces of terrain. Spyglass also being eliminated, and that's about the time that we see the missile destroyers here expending their missile offensive capability. Would have been taking out the Spyglass. Steampunk remaining to the end, 44,000, putting a fair amount of damage on the light cruisers in the middle, and then being able to finish it off at the end. Poor Stiff Arm capturing point A, which changed hands a few times, but then ultimately remained in Abrams' hands. So really exciting game, really, really close. Absolutely enjoyed it. both of these players are fairly experienced. You can see that in their fleets, you can see that in their maneuvering, and I'm looking forward to the next game, hopefully very shortly, if we can get all the time zones to line up. So take care and have a good day.